Hello, welcome to Simcha, a celebration of life. I'm Nikki Wellman. In Deuteronomy 20:19, it states, "For man is a tree of the field." For this reason, the Jewish calendar reserves one day each year to celebrate the new year for the trees, To Beshvat. This becomes a time for us to contemplate the tree as an analogy of our own growth and development, and how we can learn from it.
The connection between mankind and trees. That is one of the maybe more fascinating and mystical aspects of To Beshvat, of the holiday of the New Year of trees. What we find in the sources, what we find in the Torah, is a number of different verses that speak about this connection. One of the verses is in Parshat Shoftim, in the last book, in the last book of the 5 books of Moses, of the Chumash, that says, "Ki Adam hu eitz hasadeh," that a man is actually a tree of the field. And over there it discusses that, is a man a tree of the field, that you should cut the tree down as if you wage war against another nation. So basically the connection there is sort of a rhetorical connection.
And the verse is talking about war and warfare. And what it says there is that when you are making war and you besiege a city, you must not cut down her trees. And if you consider the context is remarkable. We're talking here about all-out warfare, right? We're talking about besieging a city. We're talking about bombing. We're talking about the willingness to pull a trigger on a machine gun. And in the midst of this horrific scene in which humanity is expressing the worst in themselves, God says to us, don't think that you are, because of this, laws to yourselves over nature. You're going to cut down a tree because it's convenient to you in your warfare? It seems warped. Because how can a tree be more important than a human being? So there's something there, something remarkable that teaches us that there are 2 levels really to our development. There's the nature in which we have to see ourselves as the tree of the field, in which the ultimate respect is due to nature. The fact that mankind may go off, may become destructive to the very creation that supports him, that we end up needing to fight wars, does not mean that we ever turn our backs to nature. That is an amazing, amazing thing, considering when this appeared in human consciousness.
But in the mystical sources, in the Zohar, and in the writings of the Arizal, we find that the connection between tree and man is a very, very profound connection. We find that the Zohar itself says that a man is connected to what's called the Eitz Chaim. The Eitz Chaim refers to, first of all, the tree of life that's found in the Garden of Eden. It's very interesting and significant to note that in the Garden of Eden, people would relate to trees, the way the Torah relates to trees is that is the epitome of paradise, the paradise consciousness, that Adam and Eve were bidden to enjoy and to be in the presence of the trees of the Garden of Eden. And if it weren't for the fact that they would have that they went against what they were meant to do, the paradise consciousness that they were meant to lead over there, and if they didn't partake of the tree of the fruit of good and evil, then they would have been able to partake of the tree of life. And they would have, with that tree of life, they would have been able to live forever. The Kabbalists teach us that the tree of life is an analogy for a template, which is the universal template, a template that connects the infinite world with the finite world, the world of God with the world of man.
We're used to the idea, of course, today. We've recognized that we live on spaceship Earth. We know that what we do to nature ends up undermining our very selves, our very beings, both psychologically and literally, physically. And yet we're talking about here an ancient midrash that is not based only on this, but rather goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. So the midrash says, Adam wakes up, so to speak, in paradise. And God comes to him and says, Adam, before you begin on this earth, I need to give you a tour. And he takes Adam around the earth and says to him the following message. Do you see everything that I've created? Do you see how beautifully holistic it is and interrelated? All of this could be for you. But be very careful not to destroy my world, because if you do, nobody's coming to fix it after you. And that is simply for years. We're talking about thousands of years. People would read that and would wonder what was meant by the words, be careful not to ruin my world. How could we ruin the world? And so it was interpreted metaphorically. If you act in a wrong way, you maybe will cause God to be angry at the world, or you won't have the right reins in the world. It never occurred to people that this means exactly what it says. Your behavior, forget about your physical behavior on the level of dumping oil into the ocean. Your behavior in your own office. You think that if you walk out with a box of paper clips from your office, that has nothing to do with nature, and you're wrong. Because ultimately, the way that the human spirit develops, the way that you look at a world and you start to believe this is all about me, I can do what I want, I can have what I want, and be damned the consequences. That's wrong. Because the end result of that is a world that no longer works. So when we talk about To Beshvat, and we worry, as we do on To Beshvat, about the amount of rainfall, how much water has the fruit had this year? We worry about a new year, especially for nature, especially for fruits. If you look back at that midrash, there's a beautiful contradiction that brings this out. Everything that I created, says God to Adam, it's all for you. But be careful not to ruin my world. I thought you just said it's all for me. It's all for you when you're part of it. Yes, it's all for you when you respect it. It's all for you when you support it, when you're doing your best to be part of that nature. But you start ruining it, it's my world. Nobody's gonna fix it for you anymore. You've got your chance. And I think for the first time, after centuries and centuries of not really understanding what that means, children in kindergarten come home with that message without realizing that it's a midrash, with knowing that the basis at the bottom of all morality first begins our commonality as human beings who live on this earth, who must respect nature, which includes other humans, and which includes, of course, all of the air, the water, the trees, and all of the things that we have learned to love if we're truly human.
When we communicate, we use many devices to make our message more attractive. We fortify it with intellectual sophistication, steep it in emotional sauce, and dress it with colorful words and images. But we should bear in mind that this is only the packaging, the fruit that contains the seed.
There's an Eitz Chaim and an Eitz Das. There's the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. And the truth of the matter is, probably the more important is the Eitz Chaim, the tree of life. We first have to be really living, and we have to be really alive. And it says in the Torah, B'chartem b'chaim, you should choose life. So we have to have sense. We're given choice and we're given free will. And God gives us all these blessings. We have to choose to use them in a healthy, positive way that we live. The essence is living. There was another beautiful thing I was taught by my master, the Amshinover Rebbe, that I was so privileged to know when I came to Israel in '68, one of the last things he told me was that learning healing, learning medicine, learning to preserve life, that's learning Torah. Because that's what Torah is about, is how to live a fully and healthy life. And if you're not going to be alive, you're not going to be able to, live. Knowing how to live is huge. Having das is a certain level of experiential wisdom. It's intellectual, it's wonderful. But first we have to be sure we're really living a good life.
The tree of life represents basically what are called the Sfirot, the 10 Sfirot. And that tree of life basically describes, as do the Sfirot, they describe all structures and all processes that exist in the world. It's the bridge between finiteness and infinity. It's the description of the beginning, middle, and end of all processes. And it's represented by a tree. So just like this universal template, which applies to all structures and processes, it applies to a human being, so too it applies to a tree. A tree has also a beginning and a middle and an end. Or it has the inception, the continuation, and the closure, the actualization. So the inception, of course, is the roots of the tree. And we know that the roots of the tree, without the roots, the tree would not exist. You can cut off part of the trunk, or some of the branches certainly, and the tree will continue to exist. But if you cut off the roots, there will be no tree anymore. So the roots corresponds to the highest parts of this universal spherotic template, that from there is all subsequent growth, all of the input, that the innermost motivating input comes from that place.
My bar mitzvah portion talks about how we're like a tree planted by a stream, that our roots are drawing even in times of drought. If we have our roots sunk deep, we'll still be nourished and we'll still be fruitful. So we reach to heaven, and yet we have to sink our roots deep. And that's what human beings are. We're both aspiring to reach heaven, and we're drawing our energy is drawn from the light from heaven. And yet we have to sink our roots deep to draw the water that gives us life. It's a combination of the water and the light. That's both the heaven and the earth. And those two together bring forth life and fruit. It's a synthesis of heavenly light and earthly nourishment and water. And water, of course, is always referred to as coming from heaven, but yet we have to be grounded to bring it into this world. And that's our role, is being that bridge between heaven and earth as human beings. That's what we're doing, is we're connecting the two. And the physical and the spiritual.
There is the root, the trunk, the branch, the leaf, and the fruit. These are 5. It's like the Keter, Chokhmah, Bina, Zerampin, and Malchut. These are the names of the Sfirot, the 5 levels. Like the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is 4 letters, and the tip of the Yud is always 5. So the root is where it sucks his livelihood. So this is where it takes it, and the Chokhmah is the trunk, the branches is Bina, the leaves, and then the fruit is the Malchut. Malchut means the vessel that take all the energy from above and contain it. And then that's what we eat. And inside Malchut you have the seed for the next tree. So this is the Keter of the next emanation.
So this is a universal template. And the Torah chose to represent it through a tree. And it's the template of a human being also. The human being also has a root, and a human being has a trunk with branches, and a human being has the fruits, of course, not only in the structure of a human being, but also in the processing of a human being, in the growth of a human being. So the root, just like the roots of a tree, a tree cannot exist without the roots. So too a human being needs their roots. The roots of a human being is basically their will, what's called in Hebrew the ratzon. The ratzon is the innermost motivation of a human being. It's very evasive, it's hard to connect to. But once they connect to their root, to their ratzon, to their will, then everything else follows.
When you identify with a tree, you're wishing your neshama to the higher worlds in all kinds of channels. And then when you do this, you produce flowers, blossoms. And then the blossoms turn into fruits. And fruits turn into seeds. And then they can reproduce trees by the thousands. So a tree is full of promise, just like we human beings are. You know, we seem to be very helpless and weak, but we have seeds to spread to the world.
The spiritual life of man also includes roots, a trunk, and fruit. The roots represent faith, our source of nurture and perseverance. The branches, trunk, and leaves are the body of our spiritual lives, our intellectual, emotional, and practical achievements. The fruit represents our power of spiritual procreation, our ability to influence others, to plant a seed in a fellow human being and watch it sprout, grow, and bear fruit.
Bereshit, Genesis, that the Kadosh Baruch Hu planted the garden. He had trees. And man was ordered to eat fruits from the trees. He specified what fruits he eat and what he should avoid. In the Kabbalah, it's explained that these fruits are not physical fruits, of course, but it's lights. Lights means spiritual light that belongs to the neshama of a person. We know that the tree of life is made out of 10 sfirot, 10 emanations of sfirot, crown, wisdom, intelligence. It's the 10 sfirot.
The sfirot basically are the language of Kabbalah, which basically communicates a universal process, a process that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Once we understand the template of the Sfirot, once we understand that everything in life has a beginning, middle, and an end, then we're able to see all structures, all aspects of reality can be viewed with the eyeglasses of the Sfirot. So just like a human being, in all the processes that they do, they also have a beginning, a middle, and an end, not only in their body, but in what they do. So too, the Sfirot have a beginning, middle, and end, so too a tree. The tree which the Torah saw so important to compare to man, the tree has its beginning, its roots, its middle, which is its trunk, and its end, which is its fruit.
And there are certain kinds of trees that each tree belongs to a certain sphera. Yeah. Now we have 30 kinds of fruits because the 10 sphirot, the 10 emanations, exist on 3 planes. It's called 3 worlds. Olamot, world. There is a world of creation, is the higher level from the lower worlds, and the world of formation, the world of action. Each one of these worlds has 10 emanations, meaning 30 sfirot. Now in each world, you have certain fruits that belongs to the sfirot. How do you know which fruit belongs to a certain world? Well, in a fruit, you have a part that is eaten and a part that is not eaten. So in the higher world is 10 kinds of fruits that you eat all the fruit. There is no good part and bad part. In the lower world, lower than creation is formation, is fruits that you eat the outside and the inside is not eaten. All these fruits that has the seed inside, that you don't eat it. So this is the world of formation. There are 10 kinds of this. And in the lowest world, which is world of action, 10 kinds of fruits that the shell is outside and the fruit is inside, like the nuts, like orange. So you have to peel the fruit and to eat the inside.
The keter is not only the crown of the tree, the keter is the is the beginning, is the root of the spherotic template. It's the highest sphera. It's the sphere that connects that which is in the body itself to that which is above it, to that which is beyond it. So the keter of the tree are the roots themselves, and they draw from what's beyond them, which is the soil and the water and the nutrients that come to it. So that's it. Although it seems upside down, our keter seems to be above us, the trees comes from down below, and it spreads itself going upwards.
So in Tu Beshvat is the time of awakening of all nature in the darkness. You know, there is a revealed awakening and a hidden awakening. The revealed awakening is Pesach, is spring, that you see things go out. But the hidden awakening, like you take a seed and you plant it in the ground, it starts going up and you still don't see anything outside. This is the hidden awakening. A hidden awakening starts in Tu Beshvat. So the same it is in nature, it's in a human being. So in Tu Beshvat starts the inner awakening because a human being is like a tree. So the same processes in a tree happens inside us. So in Tu Beshvat can start a new cycle in a person in a hidden phase. This is Tu Beshvat. So we want to connect to the energies of the neshama when it's in the revealed phase, meaning that's where we are going to. So if you eat this fruit inside you, it can awaken the energy inside you to start going up.
And finally, the culmination of this process is the fruit. Just like the fruits of the tree are the most beautiful parts of the tree. They represent the entire tree. They're the parts of the tree that have the nucleus of reproduction. So too a human being, the culmination of the process of human being is to represent themselves to the world. This is very well known to artists. Artists, maybe the goal of all different types of artists, is to, as thoroughly as possible, as inspirationally as possible, as motivationally and with as much empowerment as possible, is to represent the totality of themselves to the world, to convey that to other people. The more that they do that, the more they facilitate reproduction in other people. The more I am able to represent the totality of myself, the more I will awaken the totality of other people also. And that's the act of reproduction. And that's when I take the totality of myself, just like the seed of a human being, the DNA of a human being represents the entire human being, and that's what reproduces. So too, in my conveying the totality of myself, I am able to give fruit and to help other people bring out the best in the totality of themselves also. So we see very clearly the connections between this master template of the tree, which has its roots, its trunks, its branches, its many different directions, and finally the fruit that's the culminating process. So too in the human process that begins with the connecting my will to God's will and carrying that out on a roadmap to ultimately where I can conceive and convey the essence of who I am. And finally, that will inspire others to do the same.
Well, that brings us to the end of this Tu Beshvat special. We hope you've enjoyed it and will join us again next time. As always, from me, Nikki, shalom, and have a safe and peaceful week.